Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere damp, loud, and permanently traumatized. A place where the mud had teeth, the sky screamed, and bravery just meant breathing for one more hour. They told these soldiers they'd be home by Christmas. Instead, they became part of the trench, body, mind, and whatever was left of their hope. This isn't history class. It's the Western Front, and it's a waking nightmare in slow motion. So, before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You're standing on a train platform that smells like steam, smoke, and someone's leftover nerves. A paper ticket clutched in your hand, a paper promise folded neatly beside it. The brass band is playing something upbeat, too upbeat, while mothers cry into handkerchiefs and young boys pretend not to look terrified. You're trying to look brave too. It's not working. Your uniform itches, your boots don't fit, and the man next to you hasn't blinked in over 10 minutes. Somewhere down the platform, a general gives a speech about honor, glory, and king and country. But the wind swallows his words before they reach your ears. All you can hear is your own heartbeat and the cough of a coal engine that sounds vaguely like regret. This is it. You've been enlisted, drafted, chosen. Pick your verb. It all means the same thing. You're going to the front, to the trenches, to war. You've been told it won't last long. They said it'd be over by Christmas. They said you'd come back heroes. They said the enemy would break like glass against your nation's will. What they didn't say is that rats will eat better than you, that your best friend will die choking on mud, that you'll forget what silence sounds like. But that part comes later. Right now, you're on a train that smells like tin soup and sweaty wool, lurching through the countryside towards something nobody wants to name out loud. Men are laughing, loudly and falsely. Someone starts singing a pub song about girls back home. You don't join in. You stare out the window and try to pretend this is just another trip, just a long holiday where everyone forgot to pack socks and brought guns instead. When the train stops, it's not at a station. It's at a field. Gray, featureless. There are tents and trucks and men shouting at other men. You step off and your boots immediately sink into something between mud and manure. The cold bites straight through your socks. A sergeant with a voice like gravel and a face like boiled leather starts yelling before you even finish forming up. Names, numbers, orders. You nod like you understand. You don't. The barracks, if you can call them, that are wooden boxes filled with other wooden boxes pretending to be beds. Everything is damp. Everything is gray. Your kit includes a scratchy wool tunic, 2 pairs of socks that already smell like someone else's feet, and a metal helmet that looks like it was designed by a man who hated heads. There's a rifle too, long, heavy, more rust than metal in places. It doesn't feel like a weapon. It feels like a bad idea with a strap. You get your first taste of army food that night. Bread hard enough to insult your teeth. Stew made from ingredients that died confused. And tea that tastes like someone whispered the word flavor into a bucket of brown water. You chew slowly. You don't ask questions. You pretend you're still hungry. They march you at dawn, because marching builds character, or maybe just disguises panic as discipline. You march until your legs throb and your spine feels like a crooked fence post. They teach you how to salute, how to load your rifle, how to stab a sandbag and yell while doing it. You ask when you'll see action. The corporal just smirks and says, "Soon enough." At night, the men talk. Some about girls, some about home. One of them, Jenkins, maybe keeps sketching little pictures in the dirt with a stick. He draws horses, then birds, then nothing at all. You ask him why. He says, "Because it helps me forget I'm going to die." You laugh, but not because it's funny. Days pass, or maybe weeks. Time bends in training camp. Everything blurs together into a long parade of drills, shouts, mud, and aching joints. Your boots wear your feet more than the other way around. Your uniform stiffens with sweat and dried rain. You sleep in bursts. You wake with someone else's snoring in your ear and the taste of old tin in your mouth. The nights are too quiet. You miss the train, the shouting, the certainty. Then one morning, it comes. You're given new orders. A destination, a unit number, a field post that rhymes with France and smells suspiciously like doom. The man handing you the paper doesn't look at your face, just at your collar, as if he's already seen too many boys turn into names on telegrams. You step onto another train. This one isn't playing music. This one only moves in one direction. You don't remember signing up. Not really. One minute you're delivering bread for your uncle, whistling something tuneless and thinking about stew, and the next, you're in a town hall that smells like varnish, mildew, and other people's decisions. The chairs are lined in rows like pews, and the men sitting in them all look like they've already started mourning something. No one's speaking, just throat clearing, foot tapping, and the occasional cough that sounds like someone trying to swallow their own dread. Then he calls your name. A man in a too-clean uniform with a clipboard and a pencil stub. He says it like he's ordering tea. No warmth, no question mark. Just your name and the silence that follows it. You stand. You walk. You sit where you're told. "Do you understand what this means?" he asks without looking up. You nod, but you don't. Not really. He pushes a paper across the table. It's already filled out. There's a blank line at the bottom, like it's just waiting for your surrender. You hesitate for half a second, not because you're brave, but because your fingers suddenly feel foreign, and then you sign. Just like that. Congratulations. You now belong to the king and his war. No one cheers. No flags wave. Just a little stamp at the bottom of the form, like it's a receipt for something they've just purchased. You don't even get to keep a copy. The next room smells like disinfectant and cheap tobacco. A man pokes your ribs, another shines a light in your mouth, a third listens to your heartbeat like he's checking for rhythm, not fear. No one says anything comforting. No one tells you you're going to be all right. They just nod and scribble things on forms and tell you to take off your shirt. You feel like meat being appraised. When you're deemed fit for service, the clerk looks almost disappointed, like he was hoping to catch one bad knee or a suspicious cough and send you home. But you're healthy, tragically so. Strong enough to hold a rifle, young enough to die with minimal paperwork. Outside, the line of men hasn't moved much. One of them is crying quietly. Another is laughing, way too hard at nothing. You're handed a packet. Inside, your orders, your rail ticket, and a tiny piece of paper with a regiment number that feels like it's already being carved onto something permanent. You go home, but you're not really there. Your mother stares at the paper like it's a death sentence. Your father doesn't say much, just pats your shoulder with the kind of weight that says he remembers his own war, and it never quite ended. Your sister cries in the other room. Your youngest brother asks if you'll ride a horse. You lie and say, probably. You're told to report to the depot by sunrise. So you pack. What do you take to war? A handkerchief, a photo, a letter you haven't written yet. You lay in bed but don't sleep. The house feels too quiet, like it's already practicing being without you. In the morning, you put on your best clothes, which aren't very good. You shine your shoes even though you know they'll be ruined in days. Your mom tries to give you extra socks. You let her, even though you'll lose them before you reach the front. At the train station, the platform is a theater of denial. Some are smiling, some are praying. One lad is vomiting into a flower bed. The train is already huffing smoke like it's impatient to start ruining lives. You find a seat by the window. Not because you want the view, there is no view, but because the metal wall feels less claustrophobic than the crowd of men you're suddenly one of. And just before the train pulls away, you see him again. The man with the clipboard. Different town. Same dead eyes. He's handing another boy the same form, the same line to sign, the same lie about it being quick, clean, and noble. You wonder how many names he says a day, how many lives he files away without looking up. You wonder if he sleeps. You hope he doesn't. They take your name, your papers, and your socks. Then they take your hair, not politely, not with ceremony. Just a man with dull clippers and dead patience scraping it all off like he's peeling a vegetable. One pass, then another, and you're left with something between stubble and shame. The man ahead of you came in with thick curls. He leaves looking like a frightened egg. You're next. Nobody speaks in the barbershop tent. Just the whir of clippers, the occasional muttered curse, and the pile of discarded hair that grows like some kind of furry battlefield casualty. When it's over, they wipe your head with something that stings and smells like boiled regret. You flinch. The barber doesn't care. He's already started on the next victim. From there, you're sprayed. No explanation. Just a line of men standing stiff, while a corporal with a metal pump covers you in a fine mist of something chemical and probably illegal. It gets in your mouth, in your ears, down your shirt. You taste rust and soap and something vaguely like vinegar that's lost its will to live. Delousing, they call it. It doesn't work. You'll be scratching by morning. Your uniform comes in a bundle, as if the clothes have already given up. Wool, coarse, smelling faintly of mothballs, mold, and someone else's sweat. The trousers are too short. The tunic hangs like a borrowed curtain. Your boots? Stiff as coffins, and possibly already broken in by someone who didn't come back. You ask for a different size. The quartermaster laughs and throws you a pair of socks instead. You're marched to the barracks, or what passes for barracks. A long, low building made of desperation and splinters, rows of bunks, straw mattresses that crunch when you sit on them, like something alive is still arguing about the eviction notice. You pick a bed. You don't ask what happened to the last occupant. You don't want to know. That first night, you don't sleep. Not really. The air's too cold, the blanket's too thin, the snoring too loud, and your scalp itches like it's growing regret instead of hair. You hear someone crying into their pillow. Someone else is whispering a prayer. You stare at the ceiling and pretend you're anywhere else. Morning comes like a slap, a bugle scream, a shout, a rush of boots on wood. You're on your feet before your eyes are even open. Formation outside. No breakfast yet. First, you stand. For hours. While men in clean uniforms yell about posture, breathing, and how your face is an insult to the empire. You learn quickly. Don't blink too much, don't speak, and never ever smile. Then the drills begin. Marching, turning, stopping, turning again. 1 foot wrong and you're shouted at like you've committed treason with your ankles. The sergeant has lungs made of brass and a vocabulary that suggests he was raised by wolves and betrayal. You sweat, you trip, you do it again. Meals are served in a tin mess kit that's always too hot to hold and never full enough to satisfy. Porridge, bread, stew that has the consistency of guilt. You eat fast, because if you don't, someone else will. Then it's back to more standing, more marching, more shouting. You practice crawling through mud that smells like rust and sewage. You practice saluting until your shoulder feels dislocated. You learn to disassemble your rifle in under a minute, blindfolded, in the rain, while being screamed at by a man with mustard on his chin. At night, you scratch. The lice came back. Or maybe they never left. Tiny little insurgents bivouacked in your collar seams, launching nightly raids on your dignity. You try to sleep. The straw mattress pokes back. You curl into yourself, the smell of your own uniform clinging like failure. and you wonder what day it is, what time, what part of you is still yours. By week 2, you stop noticing the cold. By week 3, you stop noticing your own reflection. The boy who arrived on the train with thoughts of medals and adventure has been quietly replaced with someone hungrier, quieter, and much, much itchier. And then one morning, without warning, they tell you it's time. You're shipping out. The shouting stops. The joking stops. Even the lice seem to pause. You pack your things, all 12 of them, and line up by the transport trucks. Your head is still bare. Your body still stings. And now, you're ready. At least, that's what they say. It begins with a smell. Not the kind that hits you all at once. The kind that creeps up your nostrils like a thief and refuses to leave. Rot. Wet wool. Old meat. A whisper of something chemical. You try not to breathe too deeply, but it doesn't matter. The air here is thick with the scent of misery. Welcome to the Western Front. A man with hollow eyes and a cigarette glued to his lip waves you forward without speaking. You follow the duckboard's warped planks laid over knee-deep sludge until your boots slip anyway. The mud sucks at your feet like it's hungry. You grab at the wooden wall for balance. It crumbles in your hand. The trench is about 7 feet deep. Earth walls reinforced with rotting sandbags and hope. There's no roof, no real floor. Just damp, uneven ground that never dries, even when it hasn't rained in days. You ask if this is just the outer perimeter. A private named Dobbins laughs so hard he starts coughing blood. No, mate, this is it. 5-star trench accommodations. There's wire strung overhead to keep grenades out, though it doesn't always work. Someone points out a helmet with a hole in it resting on the fire step. Didn't duck fast enough, they say. You don't ask their name. You don't want to know. Your sleeping quarters are a dugout carved into the trench wall. A hole inside a hole. The ceiling drips. The floor is straw, or was straw once, before it absorbed months of mud, urine, and dreams that never made it home. You'll share it with 3 other men. One of them snores like an engine. The other doesn't talk. The third hasn't stopped twitching since you arrived. The walls tremble now and then. Not thunder, not trains, shells. Sometimes far off. Sometimes much, much too close. You flinch the first few times. They don't. One man rolls a cigarette with hands that barely shake. You get used to it, he mutters, lying to you and himself. Your trench has sectors. The fire trench, the support trench, the communication trench. It sounds like a city layout until you realize it's all the same thing. Mud, wire, more mud, and maybe a few rats large enough to qualify for rations. They don't scurry, they walk. Confident. They've been here longer than you. You're told not to poke your head above the parapet. Ever. Not even for a second. Snipers don't miss. A corporal taps the top of the sandbags. This, he says, is the line between breathing and bleeding. You nod and keep your chin low. There's a latrine pit behind the trench. Technically, most just use the nearest dark corner when nature calls. You try it once, slipping on your own boots, trousers around your ankles, while the wind whistles through the wire above. You've never felt more exposed or more human. Mealtime is whenever someone throws a tin at you and calls it stew. You poke it with your spoon. It pokes back. There's a hard biscuit too dense, tasteless, and possibly bulletproof. The trick, they say, is to soak it in tea first. The trick no one mentions is pretending it tastes like home. Night comes and brings no comfort. The sky turns dark, but the shells don't stop. Patrols go out under cover of moonlight. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. You stay awake, pressed against the trench wall, ears tuned to the sound of movement that isn't yours. You've been here 3 days, or maybe a week. Time has no edges anymore. You count it in letters received and socks changed. In the number of men who stop talking, and the number of new ones who arrive looking clean and afraid. Someone hands you a tin of whale oil for your feet. Use it, they say, or you'll lose your toes. You think they're joking until you see a man on a stretcher, feet black and rotting, his face pale with something colder than winter. Trench foot, they call it. As if it's just a minor inconvenience. As if it doesn't take men's legs with it. You curl up in your corner that night, wrapped in a damp blanket that smells like someone else's past, and listen to the rats, to the rain, to the shells that might or might not be coming closer. You shut your eyes and dream of quiet. But there is no quiet here. There is only the trench. The corporal gives you the tour, like he's guiding you through a museum, except everything here is broken, wet, and smells faintly of digestion. He doesn't bother with pleasantries, just points and mutters. Over there, that's the latrine. It's not a building. It's not even a hole. It's a shovel. You carry it until you find somewhere far enough from the others that you won't be accused of indecency, but close enough that you can still sprint back when the shelling starts again. Privacy? A myth. You squat in a shallow crater while 3 other men pretend not to look, and everyone pretends the stench isn't turning their stomachs inside out. Back in the trench proper, he shows you the kitchen. That's what they call a soot-blackened pot, hanging over a fire that isn't technically allowed because smoke draws snipers. A lad named Field stirs something inside that might be soup, might be rat broth, might be both. Don't ask, he says, handing you a dented tin mug. You sip. You regret it instantly. But you sip again, because warmth is rare and flavor is optional. You follow the duck boards, which are supposed to keep you dry. They don't. The planks are cracked and slimy, and every 4th step tries to steal your boot. You look down. The water below isn't water. It's a slow-moving stew of mud, blood, cigarette butts, and things that used to be rats. It gurgles when you step too hard. You stop stepping hard. He shows you the periscope, a battered tube with cracked mirrors propped up over the parapet. So you don't get your head shot off, the corporal explains. You take a peek. No man's land. Flat, churned earth. A field of barbed wire and shattered trees. You blink and realize one of the trees has a helmet nailed to it. You stop looking. Here's your bunk, he says, like he's introducing you to royalty. It's a wooden plank nailed into the trench wall, just above the high tide line of the filth. A few sandbags lean over it like they're trying to tuck you in. Above you, a tattered piece of tarp does its best impression of a roof. It doesn't help. The wind cuts through like a knife that doesn't care where it's going. You sit on the plank. It creaks like something remembering trauma. You lie down. The damp seeps into your spine, like it's trying to make a home there. Next stop, the firing step, a little ledge cut into the trench wall. That's where you stand when it's your turn to shoot at shadows. You're told never to leave your rifle out of arm's reach, not even when you sleep. You nod, holding it close like a child with a toy they don't understand yet. He points to a crate with 2 helmets balanced on it. That's McGregor and Lee, he says. They were sitting there last night. You look at the crate again. You don't ask any questions. There's a rat watching you from the corner. Not scurrying. Watching. Like it's judging your posture. You shift your foot. It doesn't flinch, just twitches one ear, then disappears into the wall. You think you hear it laughing. Laundry? There is none. Showers? Don't be funny. Soap is a rumor, and your socks now have a personality. You're handed a lice comb that's seen better decades and told to give it a go every couple of days. The man next to you is already scratching so violently you can see flecks of skin in the lamplight. You ask when the next hot meal is. They all laugh. Then they stop. Then someone mutters, "Sunday maybe." It's Tuesday. You think. When night falls, it doesn't fall gently. It drops like a body. Darkness presses in from all sides. There are no stars, just the dull flicker of flare, bursts lighting up the edge of the world for half a second before vanishing again. The shells don't stop. They just get further away, or closer. It's hard to tell. You lie in your bunk wooden plank, damp blanket, boots still on, and stare at the tarp above. It's dripping onto your chest. You don't bother moving. The corporal's voice echoes in your skull. You'll get used to it. You hope not. At first, you think it's just mud. Ordinary, inconvenient, brown. Something you squish through. Something that ruins socks and makes marching harder. But after a few days in the trenches, you start to realize it's not mud. Not really. It's something else. Something older, smarter, patient. It doesn't splash. It swallows. It creeps up your boots and down your spine. You step wrong once, and it's at your ankles. Step wrong twice, and it's at your knees. By the time it hits your thighs, you need 2 men and a rope to pull you out. And even then, it might keep one of your boots as payment, or your balance, or your will to keep moving. The veterans call it names. The slop, the grin, the hungry ground. You thought they were joking until you watched a supply mule vanish into it, eyes wide, legs flailing, and then just like that, gone. The mud let out a gurgle like it had finished chewing. The handler stood there, empty reins in hand, looking like he'd just lost a brother. No one said a word. There's no escape from it. It's in your bunk. It's in your food. It's in the seams of your uniform and the cracks of your fingers. It climbs up your legs every day like it's trying to make a home inside your bones. You wipe it off 1 hour, and it returns the next thicker, darker, angrier. You've started to recognize different kinds of mud. There's surface slime, which is harmless but slippery. There's the kind that hides under duckboards, waiting to suck your boot off like a drunk uncle. Then there's the bad kind, the kind that's deep and warm and oddly quiet. That's the one that takes things. You've seen rifles disappear into it. Helmets, rations, wallets with photos still inside. A man once dropped a loaf of bread, tried to grab it. Big mistake. We didn't see him again until 2 hours later, covered to his chest in muck and screaming about something pulling at his legs. It took 6 men and a spade to dig him free. His left boot's still down there, probably forming its own ecosystem. And when it rains, which it does, always the trench becomes a soup. Everything floats. Bits of tin, cigarette ends, soggy paper, clumps of something you hope was once a sandwich. It sloshes up and over the duckboards, floods the dugouts, drips from the ceiling like the trench itself is crying. You wring out your socks every hour. You don't even bother changing them anymore. Dry socks are a fairy tale told to keep men obedient. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, you wake up because you feel heavier. That's the only warning. The mud has crept into your bunk, up past your knees, pressing against your ribs like it's checking to see if you're ripe. You sit up in the dark and slap at it like a drowning man. You claw your way free, heart pounding, soaked in something that might not be water. They tell stories of men who sank in their sleep, gone by morning, one boot sticking up like a tombstone. He was too tired, someone says. Didn't feel it rising. So now you sleep light, twitching at every shift, one eye open, one hand gripping your rifle like it can save you. It can't. You've stopped trying to clean your uniform. The mud is part of it now. Part of you. It paints everything the same shade of failure. You used to flinch when it touched your skin. Now it just feels like another layer. A damp, suffocating coat you can't take off. One day you see a rat, big one, bold, walking across the trench wall like he owns the place. He steps into the mud and pauses, sinks a little, turns back. Even the rats have learned to avoid certain spots. That's when it hits you. The mud knows. It watches. It waits. It remembers the shape of your footsteps. And it's still hungry. You wake up to the sound of thunder. Not the romantic kind that comes with rain and poetry. This one rattles your teeth and makes your lungs flinch. Shellfire, somewhere in the distance. Or maybe not. It's hard to tell anymore. Sound travels strange in the trenches. Sometimes it echoes from miles away. Sometimes it's close enough to taste. You blink crust from your eyes and try to sit up. Your blanket damp, sour, and stuck to your skin peels back like it's disappointed in you. Your back cracks. Your neck protests. Your legs are stiff from sleeping at a 47-degree angle because the plank you call a bed slants just enough to suggest cruelty. And it's still wet. Always wet. You wonder if your bones are starting to mold. Someone's already shouting about breakfast. You follow the sound to the fire trench, ducking under wire, slipping on mud that's starting to feel personal. The mess line is a man named Curtis with a ladle and a permanent scowl. He stirs the contents of a pot that has seen more war than most generals. You don't ask what's in it. You stopped asking last week, when something in your tin moved. Beef tea, he grunts, slopping a watery brown liquid into your mug. It smells like meat. Forgot how to be meat. Warmish, greasy, with a mysterious film on top that shimmers like an oil slick. You sip. You regret. But you sip again, because there's nothing else, and your stomach is threatening mutiny. He hands you a biscuit next. Not the fluffy kind you remember from home. These are regulation hardtack, rectangles of flour and punishment. It takes both hands and some moral compromise just to bite into it. You chew for a full minute, and it still hasn't surrendered. You contemplate using it as a weapon. Someone nearby swears he used his to block shrapnel once. Live to tell the tale. Biscuit didn't even crack. You find a place to sit, or lean, or stand half-crouched on a slope of mud, and old regrets. Around you, the others eat in silence. Not because the food is sacred, because speaking requires energy, and no one's got much left. Someone lets out a low whistle as another shell booms somewhere to the east. You look up. Smoke. Just smoke. Again. You gnaw on the biscuit until your jaw hurts. Dip it into the beef tea, like they showed you. Softens it a little. Just enough to convince your teeth not to quit. Somewhere behind you, someone throws up. Not because of the food, probably. But it doesn't help. A rat scurries past your boot, bold and fat, carrying a bit of bread it clearly didn't earn. You glare at it. It glares back. You've lost more rations to those things than to actual theft. They run this trench. You're just renting space. Another explosion, closer this time. Dirt showers down from the trench wall. You shield your tin out of habit, as if a sprinkle of earth is worse than what you're already eating. Someone yells, "That one was ours," like it's supposed to be comforting. It's not. You finish what's left in the mug. Lukewarm now, thicker near the bottom. You try not to think about why. A man to your left is scraping the last bits from his tin with a piece of biscuit, like he's trying to erase all memory of taste. Another is already lighting a cigarette. Breakfast is over. There's no wiping your hands, no napkins, no soap. Just a crusty rag and whatever bacteria you've decided to befriend today. You rub your fingers on your trousers and call it done. You stand, stretch, crack something in your back you hope wasn't important. The morning sky is pale and indifferent. Shells still fall. Rats still run. The trench grumbles beneath your feet. You had breakfast, of a sort, and somehow you're still here. The first thing you notice isn't the noise, it's the smell. It hits you like a slap when you round the corner into the main trench, not all at once, but in slow, revolting waves. You gag reflexively. Everyone does their first time. The older ones smirk and keep walking because after a few weeks in the front, your nose stops bothering to protest. It just gives up. The smell is everywhere. In the mud, in the walls, in your blanket. It clings to your skin and curls into the folds of your uniform. You try to describe it in your head. Rotting feet, wet wool, burnt meat, sour tobacco, damp canvas, boiled onions, and something faintly sweet, but wrong. There's always something sweet about decay. The stench of 10,000 men, living like animals with nowhere to go and no one to impress. Men who haven't bathed in weeks. Men whose socks haven't been changed since the psalm. Men who cough blood into their sleeves and piss into the same mud they sleep on. You are now one of them. Congratulations. It's not just body odor. That would be merciful. This is a full bouquet of bodily failure. Trench foot, gangrene, open wounds wrapped in cloth that hasn't seen soap since it left the factory. The man next to you has a foot that smells like a butcher's bin. He changes his bandage once a week. The rest of the time he just winces and shrugs. You pass a dugout and catch a whiff of something acrid. Latrine bucket, overflowing again. Someone left it by the entrance like a cursed offering. No one wants to be the one to empty it. You breathe through your mouth, but that doesn't help. It just changes the experience from sharp to thick. The trench stew adds its own chapter to the olfactory novel. It simmers constantly over low flame, a mix of root vegetables, stringy meat, and desperation. The smell seeps into everything. Your clothes, your hair, your dreams. You could smell that stew in the next life and start twitching. Tobacco tries to fight it. Dozens of men puffing pipes or rollies, trying to cloud the air with smoke and pretend they can't smell each other. It doesn't work. The stink cuts through the smoke like a blade. The only thing tobacco does is make you dizzy enough to stop caring. Then there's the smell of death. Not fresh death that's sharp, clean, clinical in its own way. This is old death. Half-buried bodies in the side of the trench. Bones sticking out like roots from a bad harvest. A corner no one walks past without holding their breath. You try not to look. You fail. The flies don't even buzz anymore. They just sit, content. Your boots squelch as you walk. Every step stirs something. A new note in the perfume of horror. Mold, fuel, rain, sweat soaked through canvas. Your own armpits have started developing character. You've stopped trying to wash. There's no point. Even if you scrubbed yourself raw, the trench would soak you back up in minutes. You lie in your bunk at night, and it's there too, the smell, pressing against your face, crawling into your nose. One man coughs in his sleep, his breath a fog of onions and rot. Another lets out a low moan, fevered, sour with infection. The rats don't care. They crawl over everything, nibbling at crumbs and fingers alike. Even they stink. You didn't know rats could stink. You dream about fresh air, about your mother's kitchen, or a field after rain. But when you wake up, it's always the same. The trench, the reek, the stale, fermented breath of war hanging thick and heavy, like a punishment no one remembers earning. You try not to smell yourself, but it happens. You lift your arm and catch a waft, something between sour milk and old metal. You wonder if this is how you'll smell forever. If you survive, if you go home, if you lie in a clean bed and someone pulls you close, will they flinch? You don't know. All you know is this. You live in a soup of human decay, and you've learned to breathe it. You meet your first rat on your second night in the trench. It's sitting on your blanket like it owns the place. Big, gray, eyes like polished coal. You freeze. It doesn't. Just twitches its whiskers, leans forward slightly, and sniffs. You blink. It blinks back. Then it yawns, turns around, and disappears into your pack like it paid rent. No one warned you about the rats. Not properly. They mentioned them in passing in the same breath as lice and dysentery like a background nuisance. What they didn't say was that the rats here are mutants. Hulking, muscular things the size of house cats. Not the dainty kind, the overfed sunroom window kind. And they're not scared of you. Not in the slightest. They live in the trench walls, behind sandbags, under floorboards. You'll hear them at night scratching, chewing, squealing in delight as they dig tunnels and wage little rodent wars beneath your bunk. You'll hear a scream once in a while, usually from some poor bastard who rolled over in his sleep and found something warm and furry sharing his pillow. One man woke up with a rat sitting on his chest, eating crumbs off his beard. He didn't speak for 3 days. They eat everything: biscuits, letters, soap, socks. They chewed through your pack last week to get at the crumbs in the corner. They chewed through Dobbin's sleeve while he was still wearing it. They chewed through a man's ear once, left the rest of him alone. You don't ask why. You just start sleeping with your blanket tucked in tight and your sleeves over your hands. Some soldiers try to trap them. Boxes propped up with spoons, the occasional wire snare. Doesn't work. These rats are too smart. They study you, watch your routines, learn your weak spots. One stole a tin from under a man's arm while he was eating, dragged it off into the dark. 4 men chased it. None came back with the tin. You think you've seen the worst of it until one night, just after mess, you spot 2 rats working together to drag a dead pigeon out of the latrine pit. One holds the wings, the other bites the tail. Perfect coordination. A grim little parade. You watch them march it back to their lair like prize fighters. You start wondering if they have names, ranks, a flag. They're bold, too. They don't just sneak around in the shadows. They walk the duckboards in broad daylight, saunter past your boots like they're inspecting the trench. One of them hops up on the fire step, sniffs a rifle, and squeaks like it's unimpressed. You consider saluting. Someone swears the rats are growing, bigger every week. You joke about it at first, until you see one dragging a helmet. Not a little cap, a full tin lid. You stare. It stares back. You blink. It doesn't. Just keeps dragging. The worst are the ones that stare. They sit in corners, half hidden, their little eyes glinting in the lantern light, watching, studying. You get the feeling they're waiting for something. A moment. An opportunity. You don't know what for. You just know you'll lose it. You try to keep your food sealed. Doesn't help. They find a way. You eat fast now. Not because you're hungry, because the rats are watching. You hear them scratching during dinner. One jumped onto a tin yesterday, right in front of everyone. Took a piece of turnip and left. No one even moved. Sometimes you talk to them. Quietly. At night. Not full conversations, just muttered threats, nervous greetings, the occasional, "Not tonight." One looks up, twitches an ear, and vanishes. You wonder if it understood. You no longer flinch when one runs across your foot. You no longer scream when they chew through the lining of your coat. You no longer bother naming them. They've already named you. Roommate, provider, future meal, maybe. And still, they stare. You sit hunched in the dugout, pencil clutched in a hand that won't stop trembling, a thin scrap of paper balanced on your knee. You've read the same sentence 5 times now. "Dear Mum," it begins. That much is easy. That much is always easy. After that, the lies start. You write, "All is well." A simple, harmless phrase, gentle, reassuring. You leave out the part about the man in the corner who hasn't eaten in 3 days and now just rocks, mumbling the same name over and over. You don't mention how his eyes don't focus anymore, how you're not sure if he even knows where he is, or who he is, or who you are. You write, "The weather's been fine." You skip the part about the constant drizzle that turns the trench walls into pudding and the floor into soup. You don't mention how you've been wearing the same pair of socks for 9 days straight, or how your toes are starting to feel wrong. You don't know the word for the color they've turned. You're not sure the color exists outside of here. You write, "Food is holding up," which is technically true in that it hasn't walked off on its own. Yet, you don't describe the stew that tastes like rust, or the biscuit that shattered your tooth. You definitely don't mention that you saw a rat drag away someone's last chocolate bar, and no one stopped it. Some even watched with a kind of reverence. You try to think of something funny to add. A joke, a story, something about your mates. But most of them aren't really mates. Just wet, tired men with blank stares and names you sometimes forget. And even the funny ones stopped laughing 2 weeks ago. Ever since Mallory got hit by shrapnel and didn't scream. Just dropped, silent, like a puppet with its strings cut. You start a new sentence. You'd be proud of me. You pause. You stare at it. You think about the things you've done, the things you've seen, the things you've stepped over to get to the latrine. You scratch out the line and replace it with, "Tell Dad I'm doing my best." You fold the letter, creased with sweat, and slide it into the envelope. You lick it closed. The taste of glue and grime. You don't have a stamp. You hand it to the runner anyway. He tucks it into his pouch alongside 20 others. All of them probably say the same thing. All of them whispering, "It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine." Someone across the trench is reading a letter of their own. He laughs. Loud, sudden, and wrong. Everyone flinches. He reads aloud. "The dog got into the pantry again." Another chuckle. 8, 3 sausages in the sugar tin. You smile for a moment. A dog, a kitchen, sausages. The words sound like another life, like mythology. You picture your own dog, long gone probably, or maybe still waiting by the gate, tail wagging, ears perked at the sound of every truck. The man finishes reading, folds the letter, and tucks it into his breast pocket with a tenderness you haven't seen in days. Then he stares into the mud for a long time, doesn't say a word after that. You wonder if your letter will make it, if the mud or the rats or the war will get to it first, if your mother will hold it in her hands and read your carefully chosen lies with a smile, or if she'll read between the lines. Mothers usually do. You lie back in your corner, the paper gone, but its words still clinging to your throat. You imagine her reading, "All is well." You imagine her nodding, setting the letter beside her tea. You imagine her looking out the window, watching the clouds, wondering why the sun suddenly feels so far away. You close your eyes and try not to dream, because the man next to you is screaming again. And it's only Tuesday. You wake up with your boots still on. That's how you know it's a weekday, or maybe a weekday adjacent. You've stopped keeping track. The sun's not quite up yet, and already the sky's muttering threats. You sit up, your spine cracks. Something scurries away from your leg. Could have been a rat. Could have been a hallucination. You don't care. Today's objective is the same as yesterday's and the day before that. Not winning, not glory, just not dying before tea. You shuffle out of your dugout, bones creaking, eyes crusted, and shoulders hunched like they're trying to hide from fate. A shell drops somewhere distant, a low thud that makes your ribs buzz. No one flinches. You don't even look up. That one wasn't close. You can tell by the way the ground didn't shift under your boots. You've developed a system, a kind of sixth sense that isn't really sense so much as scar tissue. Shells with a rising whistle, those are trouble. You hear that, you drop. Doesn't matter if you're mid-sentence or mid-sip. You dive face first into whatever mud hole's closest and hope it's not the one full of last week's latrine. Mortars have a different tone. Thicker. Angrier. Like the sky's clearing its throat right before it spits something hateful. The new lads can't tell the difference yet. One of them asked yesterday if that sound meant rain. You didn't answer. You just pointed to the crater where Jones used to be. You spend most of the morning hunched behind the fire step, rifle in hand, pretending to look busy. You don't stand up unless you have to. And you definitely don't poke your head over the parapet unless you're looking to collect a sudden case of lead poisoning. Snipers love a morning silhouette. Clean shot, clean story, no funeral required. Sometimes the enemy fires just to keep you jumpy, doesn't aim, just throws metal at the sky and sees where it lands. It's like a game, except nobody wants to win. The sergeant calls it harassment fire, like it's a bothersome cousin instead of a life-shortening rain of death. You've learned to tell the duds by the sound they make right before hitting a kind of cough, wet and wrong. Those are the worst. You can't hear them coming. You just feel your gut twist and think, not this one. Please not this one. When it's not exploding, the trench is just quiet enough to be loud. Distant coughing, rat squeaks, boots squelching in rhythm, the slop of men moving in muck. It's a symphony of survival. No melody, just percussion. Lunchtime comes. You choose something called meat spread and try not to remember what meat actually tastes like. A few lads trade bites. One has a bit of jam, another has a biscuit. He's softened with tears. You smile or twitch. It's hard to tell the difference now. Then comes patrol duty. You slip over the top with a few others, crawling through no man's land like worms in uniforms. Every step is a prayer. Every rustle might be the end. You don't think about it. You just move, one elbow drag at a time, pretending the barbed wire is merely inconvenient shrubbery and not a tangle of man-sized snares. When you get back still whole, still breathing, you don't celebrate. You just nod at the next man in line. Your skin's torn, your knees ache, and your stomach hasn't unclenched since sunrise. But you're alive, which means you win. For now. Tea comes in a tin mug with bits floating in it. You drink it like it's the nectar of the gods. Warm, wet, barely bitter. You let the steam sting your nose and pretend it smells like home. Another shell falls, close enough to make the ground jump. You brace without blinking. Then you sigh. It's only Wednesday, and you're still here. The whistle doesn't sound like you thought it would. It's not a proud trumpet blast or some rousing cry of valor. It's short, flat, almost bored, like a schoolmaster calling the class back inside after lunch. But it still makes your blood freeze. You're already standing on the fire step when it comes, rifle in hand, bayonet fixed, knees locked like they're trying to mutiny. Around you, men glance at each other, quick, twitchy movements. No one says anything. There's nothing left to say. You've all written your letters. You've all tucked them in your breast pockets, close to your hearts, in case your chest gets scattered somewhere far from home. Mud swallows your boot as you step up. The lip of the trench looms above you like the edge of the world. Someone mutters a prayer. Someone else vomits. You don't remember who climbs first. Only that once they do, you follow. Because that's what the whistle means. It means now. You haul yourself up over the top. The mud drags at your legs like death's little helper, whispering, "Not so fast." Your hands are slick. Your rifle is heavier than it should be. Your body is suddenly all elbows and fear. Then you're standing in the open, exposed, alive. For now. No man's land stretches out ahead, a desolate quilt of craters, wire, bodies, and smoke. The air buzzes with something ancient and ugly. Then the guns open up. You don't see where the bullets come from. You just feel the air tearing around you, hissing, whining, screaming. You run, or something like running. It's more of a stagger, a forward fall that never lands. Mud sprays, boots slip. Someone shouts your name, or maybe just a sound that rhymes with it. You keep going, because stopping means dying. And you haven't finished your letter yet. A man to your right jerks sideways and drops. No cry, just a thud, like a sack of wet flour. You don't look. You can't. You jump a crater and land wrong, ankle twisting, teeth clacking. You grunt and keep moving. Behind you, the trench shrinks. Ahead of you, barbed wire glints like the grin of a steel god. You reach it and drop to your knees, fingers fumbling for the cutters strapped to your thigh. The wire hums not from electricity, but from memory. It remembers the men who bled here yesterday. It wants more. Your hands shake. You cut. You crawl. Another shell lands nearby. The world flashes white, then swallows itself in thunder. Your ears ring. Your mouth tastes copper. You're not sure if it's blood. Someone grabs your shoulder. It's Curtis. His helmet's gone. Eyes wide, mouth open, yelling something you can't hear. He points forward, waves you on. You nod, even though your legs don't want to work anymore. You move anyway, because Curtis is moving, because someone else fell behind you, because you have to. You reach the second crater. Smoke rolls over the rim like spilled ink. You drop into it and catch your breath, or try to. The air's thick with gunpowder and rot. You press your back to the dirt and whisper the only prayer you remember. It's not for glory, not for victory, just for one more breath, one more minute. Curtis drops in beside you, his arms bleeding. He doesn't notice. He grins, or maybe grimaces, and claps your shoulder. Then he stands. And you follow. You climb again, rifle raised, bayonet trembling like a leaf in the wind. You scream not words, just sound, and charge the line like a man trying to outrun his own death. It works for exactly 7 seconds. Then someone's screaming. Someone's falling. The smoke swallows everything. And somehow, you come back. Caked in mud, splattered in blood, limping, shaking, but breathing. You climb back into the trench and collapse. The same whistle blows again, faint, distant. For someone else now. You lie still. You've done your part. For today, and you're still here. You're back in the trench, but part of you never left the wire. Your boots are still caked with no man's land, mud hardened to the shape of someone else's blood. You don't remember how you got back. You just remember the blur of limbs, the weight of your rifle like a stone across your shoulders, and the way the world tilted sideways for what felt like hours. Now here you are, alive. At least, that's the official story. Your ears are still ringing. A high, shrill whine that won't go away. It's like a kettle left on too long, except there's no warmth to it, just pressure. You press your palms over your ears, but it doesn't stop. It never stops. Across from you, Curtis is picking dirt from his fingernails with a broken bayonet, staring at nothing. You say his name once, twice. No response. Finally, his eyes flick toward you, slow and glassy. You see where McNeil went? He asks. McNeil's been gone 3 days. You want to say that. You want to remind him. But your throat tightens around the words, and all that comes out is a cough and a small laugh. Not because it's funny, just because it's all your body knows how to do now. Curtis doesn't react. He just goes back to picking. You try to eat. Can't. Your hands won't stop shaking. The spoon rattles in your fingers like it's made of tinfoil. You spill broth down your front, and someone jokes that you've sprung a leak. You laugh again. Too loud. Too long. The others stop eating and stare. You wipe your mouth and look away, biting down hard on the inside of your cheek until you taste iron. Sleep doesn't come easy anymore. You lie on your plank, eyes wide, heart beating too fast over nothing. Every creak, every shift in the wind, every cough from a man 3 bunks down feels like a warning. You flinch in your own skin, and when you finally do drift off, the dreams are worse. Flashes of light, screams without mouths, the weight of bodies on top of you not attacking, just falling, endless falling. You wake up with your nails dug into your palms, chest soaked, breath clawing its way out of your lungs like it's trying to escape you. The medics call it nerves. The officers call it lack of morale. You call it whatever you need to, just to keep functioning. You call it Tuesday. You call it morning. You call it part of the uniform. You've started hearing things. A voice whispering your name when no one's there. A scream that no one else reacts to. The scrape of boots behind you when the trench is empty. You blink and it's gone, but the fear it leaves behind lingers like smoke. Some men cry. Others go silent. You've become one of the ones who laugh. Not joyfully, not even bitterly, just nervously, reflexively, a barking kind of noise that erupts without permission. Once you laughed when a man got shot in the leg and tried to hop away. You hated yourself instantly, but you couldn't stop. You avoid mirrors now. The last time you caught your reflection in the side of a canteen, you didn't recognize the man looking back. too pale, too thin, eyes too wide, like something had crawled into you and hollowed out the familiar parts. Letters from home pile up, unopened. You used to tear them open with greedy hands. Now you just look at the envelopes and feel tired. What are you going to tell them? That you're proud? That you're fine? That sometimes you forget how to tie your boots because your fingers won't listen? There's a new lad in the trench today, barefaced, nervous. He fumbles with his gear and asks if it gets easier. You smile. You laugh. A little too long. And you say, "Oh sure, just takes a few nights." And then you walk away because the ringing is back and you're still here. You've stopped calling them lice. That word feels too small, too polite. These aren't just pests. These are squatters, freeloaders, invaders with an endless lease on your body. You try to think of them like wildlife, a part of the ecosystem now, like rats or trench foot. But rats leave you some dignity. Lice take everything. They live in your seams, in the folds of your shirt, in the waistband of your trousers. The moment you stop moving, they start crawling, biting, multiplying. You scratch in Morse code now, desperate, erratic bursts of movement that say things like, "Kill me," and "Burn it all," and "Why me again? Dear God, why me?" Everyone scratches, even the officers, though they try to pretend otherwise. The powder they give you is supposed to help. It smells like old mint and gunpowder. You pour it into your collar, down your sleeves, into your socks. The lice laugh. The powder doesn't kill them. It just gives them seasoning. Some men swear by fire. You see them at the end of the day, holding shirts over open flames, watching the little white dots pop and hiss. It smells like roasted regret. You try it once, nearly set your sleeve alight. You decide to just live with the lice instead. They nest in your hair, in your chest, in places no insect should ever go. You find them in your eyebrows, in your armpits. One man pulled one from his nostril. You don't question how. You just nod and offer your condolences. You've given up on shame. Once you tried to scratch discreetly. Now you yank open your shirt and dig at your ribs like a madman in front of everyone. They don't blink. One lad took off his trousers during mess and stomped them flat just to hear the satisfying crunch. You applauded. You meant it. Sleep is no escape. That's when they're boldest. They know you can't fight back in your dreams. You wake up clawing at your skin, convinced someone poured itching powder into your spine. You scratch until you bleed. Then you scratch the blood. The worst is the waiting. Standing in line, rifle slung, pretending to listen while your entire torso writhes with microscopic torment. You try not to think about the fact that every man around you is infested too, that you're all walking buffets, bumping into each other like plague-ridden sardines. Some men joke about training the lice, teaching them tricks, forming a circus, the lice carnival they call it, starring General Scratchy and the Bloodsucker Boys. You laugh the hollow kind that echoes off the trench walls and dies somewhere in the latrine. Occasionally, you find one, just strolling across your forearm like it owns the place. You pinch it between your fingernails and squeeze until it pops. It leaves a smear. You wipe it on your trousers. Another medal for the collection. Curtis keeps count. Says he's at 312. You tell him that's impressive. He says he names them before the kill. The one he crushes this morning is Douglas. You don't ask why. You just scratch. The doctors don't even pretend to help anymore. They shrug. They offer powder like it's candy. Sometimes you wonder if they've got lice too. Probably. There's no safe rank here. No officer's coat thick enough to keep out the itch. You start fantasizing about baths. Not hot ones, just clean water. A trickle, a rag, anything that doesn't smell like fuel and failure. You imagine a world without crawling, without itching, without the constant, quiet suspicion that something is moving just beneath your collarbone. You imagine silk sheets, crisp shirts, hair without residence. And then you stop, because imagining is dangerous. You scratch your wrist, then your neck, then your side, then your leg. A rhythm now, like a ritual, like prayer. You slap your shoulder and feel the faint pop of another one gone. For now. The sun sets, and the itching doesn't. But you're used to that. You shift in your bunk, scratch once, twice, and fall asleep with the enemy still dancing across your skin. Your boots are wet, not damp, wet. Sloshing, squishing, soaked, through wet. You put them on wet, walk in them wet, sleep in them wet. You've forgotten what dry feels like. Your socks, formerly a proud gray, now resemble damp toast. The kind no one wants but someone still eats out of politeness. The officers told you to change your socks. They gave you 2 pairs. Luxury. You try to rotate them. Hang one over a rusted nail while you wear the other. Swap. Repeat. Except they never really dry. They just become different temperatures of damp. Cool damp, lukewarm damp, stew damp, and the smell has transcended science. It's less like socks and more like something exhumed. Your feet, once loyal soldiers beneath you, have begun to rebel. First they tingled, then they went numb. Then came the cracks, deep, angry fissures across your heels, your toes, the ball of your foot. They bleed sometimes. Pus too if you're lucky. You peel off your socks and parts of you come with them. Skin sloughs off in soggy ribbons. You joke about saving it to patch a hole in your shirt. But it's not funny. You hobble now. Everyone does. Some more than others. Curtis walks with a lean. Nash just drags his left foot behind him like it's sulking. One lad down the trench had his toes amputated last week. They did it right there, on a crate, with a bottle of rum and a knife that looked suspiciously like a bayonet. They wrapped his foot in someone's scarf and called it done. The doctors have names for it. Immersion foot, they say, as if that makes it sound better. Like a spa treatment, like something you signed up for. You didn't. All you did was stand in water for 16 hours straight, guarding a line no one dared cross. You weren't trying to rot. It just sort of happened. Like love, the slow, insidious kind. Creeping in, curling around you, eating you alive while whispering, "Shh, this is normal." You try to care for them. You rub them, massage them, talk to them like they're old friends you don't want to lose. "Hang in there, lads," you whisper. "Just a few more days." But they don't listen. They throb. They ooze. One of your toenails came off this morning. You stared at it in your palm, like it was an omen. You buried it in the mud. Gave it a name. Said a few words. When you walk, it's with the cautious steps of a man carrying something broken. Not fragile, just broken. Like if you move too fast, your soles might slide right off like wet soap. So you limp. Slowly, carefully, one step at a time. Because falling isn't just embarrassing now. It's dangerous. The mud doesn't care how long you've been here. It will eat what's left of you without chewing. At night, you dream of shoes. Real ones. Leather, dry laces. The feeling of pulling on a sock that doesn't cling like seaweed. You dream of cobblers. You dream of feet that don't smell like something decomposing in a bog. You dream of your mother rubbing ointment on your blisters after school, sking and muttering, "What were you even doing in those shoes, boy?" You wake up to more damp, more ache. You check your toes, still there, mostly. You flex your foot, a sharp jolt, like lightening up your calf. You wince, grit your teeth, and lace your boots again. The laces snap. You don't swear. You don't cry. You just stare at the frayed ends and tie a knot where they used to be. You climb out of your dugout. The mud greets you like an old lover familiar, cloying, inescapable. You take your first step and feel everything you're trying not to think about. And you keep walking anyway, because that's what you do, until your feet stop being yours and become something the war borrowed, without asking if it could return them. The trench at night is quieter, but not silent. Never silent. It hums with things pretending to be still. The wind through busted sandbags, water dripping into a tin cup no one ever empties. The slow, wet shift of something alive trying not to be noticed. You're on watch. Everyone else is asleep or pretending to be. You sit on the fire step, rifle across your knees, and stare into fog so thick it feels like breath. The moon hangs somewhere up there, blurred and distant, like a bulb behind a filthy curtain. You hate the moon. It gives just enough light to see shapes, but never enough to know what they are. Curtis snores below you, loud, ragged, like something trying to leave his body through the wrong exit. You don't wake him. You envy him. There's a kind of bravery in sleeping here, in closing your eyes and trusting the world not to end while you're vulnerable. You haven't slept properly in days, maybe weeks. Your eyelids feel like burlap. Your joints grind like bad gears. But you stay alert. You force it. Because the dark has rules, and the first one is this: if you blink too long, you disappear. The officer said to watch for movement. So you do. You watch everything. The fog swirls and shifts like it's testing you, drawing shadows just close enough to stir panic, then melting them back into mist before you can raise your rifle. You blink once, and swear a man is standing in the crater ahead. You blink again. Nothing. Your heart thuds harder than it should. You shift your grip. The wood of your rifle is damp, not just from the air, from your own palms. You whisper to yourself. Not words, just noise. A hiss. A hum. Anything to keep the fear from building pressure. The line is quiet, but quiet is dangerous. You'd prefer shell fire. Something loud and obvious. Something that tells you, yes, this is danger. This kind of quiet is the kind that sneaks, that waits, that reaches under your coat and taps your spine just to remind you it's still there. Somewhere in the fog, an owl calls. You jump. The safety clicks on your rifle as your fingers tighten. You know it's an owl. You know, but your body doesn't care. Your hands don't trust facts anymore. You whisper a prayer. You don't even believe in much, but something about the dark makes you want to believe in everything. Saints, angels, ghosts. You pray to whoever might be listening. You pray not to shoot the wind. You pray not to miss if it's not the wind. Curtis stirs and mutters something in his sleep. You don't catch the words. You wish you had. You'd kill for a voice right now. Even nonsense. Even snoring. Anything that says you're not alone out here. But you are. You look at your watch. It's broken. Cracked glass. Stopped ticking a week ago. You still check it out of habit. It's always 3:17. You hate that number now. Somewhere out in the dark, a twig snaps. Not loud. Not definite. But it snaps. You freeze. The fog holds still with you. You raise your rifle slow, breath shallow. You wait. Nothing. You stay like that for 20 minutes, motionless, watching the same patch of ghost-colored nothing, daring it to move again. Your arms ache. Your neck throbs. Your legs are going numb beneath you. But you don't move. Eventually, a bird calls. Morning's trying to rise. The fog's turning blue at the edges. The world begins to shift again. You exhale. Curtis groans and sits up, rubbing his face. Anything? He asks. You shake your head. Just shadows. He nods. He doesn't ask what kind. You pass him the rifle. Step down. Peel your coat tighter. You survived the night. Again. But something in you stayed out there, in the fog, watching back. It doesn't come with a warning. No siren, no drumbeat, just a hiss, long and low, like the trench itself has started to exhale. You freeze mid-step. Somewhere ahead, a voice cracks open the quiet, with a single word not shouted, not screamed, just gas. Then the panic. Men scramble, knocking into each other, shoving toward gear hooks, packs, pockets. You reach for your mask with hands that forget how hands work, fumbling, shaking, blind already. You pull it from its canister, fingers clawing at the straps like they're tangled in weeds. The hiss grows. It slithers over the edge of the trench like something alive. The air changes, gets heavier, slicker. Your lungs twitch before the gas even touches you. You can feel it coming, like a storm made of acid. You get the mask over your face just as the first wave rolls in a yellow-green fog that hugs the ground like it knows who to kiss goodbye first. You tighten the straps. They bite into your skull. You don't care. The world becomes small inside the mask. Every breath echoes in your ears. Every exhale fogs the glass, smearing your vision into blurred shapes. You sound like a dying horse. You feel like one too. Someone's still shouting, or maybe coughing, or both. Curtis is beside you, mask on, hunched like he's trying to fold himself into the dirt. You nod at each other. That's the new form of speech now. Nod, blink, survive. Then someone down the trench didn't get theirs on in time. You hear it before you see it, a choking, gargling sound, sharp and wet, like someone trying to swallow broken glass. He's clawing at his throat, eyes bulging through the mask he never managed to seal. Foam spills from his mouth. He falls, twitching. You turn away. Not fast enough. The smell still makes it through, like garlic, rotten garlic, but sharper, sour. It burns even behind the mask. Your eyes sting. Your throat itches. You cough and immediately regret it. It's not a normal cough. It's a dry metallic scrape like your lungs are trying to file themselves down. You duck lower, clutching your rifle like it's a talisman. The gas clings to your uniform. Your skin crawls beneath it. You feel like you're wearing death, and it fits too well. Another man stumbles past, mask askew, trying to scream but managing only a wheeze. His skin is blistering. His hands tremble. He collapses into the mud with a sound you'll never forget, soft, like a sack of fruit. You want to help, but you also want to live, so you don't move. Time stretches. The gas doesn't rush. It drifts. It lounges. It takes its time, curling into dugouts, slinking beneath tarps, filling every hollow like it was designed to do just that. You press yourself against the wall, every muscle rigid, like fear has sculpted you into stone. Eventually, the hiss fades. The air begins to shift. A breeze picks up slow, tentative, like even the wind is scared. The mask stays on, just in case. You've learned not to trust the first signs of safety. When you finally remove it, your face is slick with sweat. Your lips are cracked. Your eyes sting as if they've seen too much. Curtis takes his off too. Says nothing. Just breathes deep, slow, like the act itself is sacred. You both look down at the man who didn't make it. His mask is in the mud, bent and useless. His eyes are open. His mouth is still foaming. You turn away again. Slower this time. There's no medal for surviving gas, no promotion, no rest. There's just the next breath, the next hour, the next maybe. You keep moving, because the trench waits, and so does the next hiss. He's still warm when you first notice. Not moving, not speaking, but warm. Slumped awkwardly against the trench wall, one leg bent under the other, head cocked like he's listening to something just out of reach. You nudge his boot with yours. Nothing. You call his name once, then again. Nothing. You crouch beside him, and the blood on his chest is the kind that no longer moves. He was alive this morning. ate a biscuit, complained about the mud, laughed at Curtis's cough. Alive enough to argue. Now he's not. You don't have the energy to be shocked. You don't even flinch. You just shift a little to the side and try not to lean on him. There's no time to dig a grave. No priest. No final words. The trench doesn't allow for ceremony. The mud takes its own toll. And if a man dies and doesn't block the firing step, then he stays at least until the next rotation, sometimes longer. So he becomes part of the wall, packed in with the sandbags. A little extra insulation from the next shell burst. His jacket stiffens over the hours. His face grays in the corners. But he's still wearing his helmet, slightly crooked, like he fell asleep after a long shift. You don't know what to do with your hands anymore. So you fidget, scratch your neck, adjust your rifle strap. Anything but look at him for too long. Because if you look too long, you might see how similar you are. The same boots, same muddy cuffs, same 1,000-yard stare, just his is permanent now. Curtis says nothing either, just lights a cigarette and offers you one. You take it. The smoke fills the air between you and the dead man. A veil, a pause, a thin barrier between now and what could be tomorrow. Flies arrive by evening. Not a swarm, just a few scouts, buzzing low, respectful-like. You shoo them away. They come back. You stop trying. You try not to sleep leaning on him. But space is tight. Bodies packed shoulder to shoulder like books in a shelf. And his doesn't move anymore. Doesn't snore. Doesn't twitch. Just leans, ever so slightly, into you. Like he still expects to share warmth. You wake once in the night, with your head tilted against his shoulder. You sit bolt upright, shivering. You wipe your face. You whisper, "Sorry," without knowing why. He's not the first dead man to share your trench. Probably not the last. There was a lad last week, nameless, toothless, quiet, who bled out near the latrine. They used his body to shore up the duckboards. Someone joked that he was finally useful. No one laughed. The longer he stays, the harder it is to remember what his voice sounded like. You know his name. You think. You remember he had a scar near his eyebrow, or maybe that was someone else. You remember he always sat in the same spot, right where your elbow rests now. He had a sister, or maybe a cat, or maybe nothing. There's a letter in his coat pocket. You don't touch it. That's the rule. No reading the last words. No claiming the treasures of the newly departed. That's bad luck. Worse than lice. Worse than trench foot. It sticks to you. By morning, he's stiff. You try not to notice. Try not to look when someone walks past and glances down with that familiar nod. The one that says, "Ah, another one." They don't stop. They've seen it too many times. Eventually, someone from command comes by with a list. Looks at his face, checks a name, marks something down, walks off. Official now, accounted for. One more digit in the great arithmetic of war. You sit beside him one more hour. 2. Until someone taps your shoulder and says it's your shift on watch. You stand. Your knees pop. You mutter something again. Maybe sorry. Maybe nothing at all. And as you leave, you glance back. Just a shape in the mud now. Just part of the trench. It starts with a shout from down the line, muffled, casual, like someone announcing tea. Mail's in. You don't move at first. Nobody does. The words take a second to settle, to spread. It's like tossing a stone into mud's slow ripples. Then someone stands. Someone else leans forward. You follow. Not because you expect anything, but because maybe. The man with the sack walks like he's carrying gold. A limp in his left leg. A whistle between chapped lips. His fingers are black around the edges, ink, mud, maybe frostbite. Hard to tell anymore. But in his hand, clutched like treasure, are pieces of paper that could mean everything. Curtis stands next to you. He says nothing. just watches. You both do. The names come out, one by one, folded, smeared, crumpled. Some from wives, some from mothers. One from a little girl who draws daisies in blue crayon and spells Papa with 2 P's and a backwards A. The soldier who gets that one doesn't even try to hide the tears, just folds the paper and puts it against his chest like armor. Your name is called. You blink. Step forward. Take it. The envelope is soft at the corners, the ink smudged from someone's careful hand. You hold it like it might vanish. You don't open it right away. You stare at your own name written in familiar loops and curves. That name feels foreign now, like it belongs to someone who didn't know the smell of mustard gas or the sound of bones snapping under mud. You sit back on the crate and finally tear the edge. It smells like something floral. Soap, maybe, or a drawer that hasn't been opened in months. You don't realize you've been holding your breath until the scent hits you and your lungs do something they haven't done in days. They expand. The letter isn't long. A few lines. A joke about the neighbor's cat. A mention of rain. A reminder that someone out there still knows you're alive. You read it twice, then 3 times. You fold it neatly, like something sacred, and slide it into the inner pocket of your coat, right over your heart, where it belongs. Curtis didn't get one today. You don't ask if he was expecting anything. You just pass him half your biscuit and pretend not to notice when he chews it too long, like it tastes like failure. The trench is quieter after mail. Some men read aloud. Others don't. Some stare at blank hands and try not to look like it matters. One lad burns his in a match flame, eyes glassy. You wonder what it said, or what it didn't. But for 5 minutes, maybe 10, the war isn't here. You're not private anything. You're just you. A boy from a town with cracked sidewalks and loud roosters. A name scrawled in a grandmother's cursive. A Sunday afternoon in a chair by the window. You remember how butter tastes, how beds feel, how silence used to mean peace, not a warning. Then someone fires a shot. Just one. It snaps through the fog like a reminder. You tuck the letter deeper in your coat, clutch your rifle, step back into the line. The trench doesn't care about your mail, but you do. Someone finds a harmonica. Where it came from, no one knows. Could have been in a care package. Could have been lifted off a corpse. Doesn't matter. It works. Mostly. A little bent at the side, and the low notes wheeze like an asthmatic goose, but it plays. Curtis gives it a go. Blows something that might have once been Daisy Bell, if Daisy had a limp and a drinking problem. The others clap. A few chuckle. One man near the latrine starts singing along in a voice so off-key, it threatens structural damage to the trench wall. No one tells him to stop. Then someone kicks out a tin can. That's a goalpost now. And someone else produces a lump that used to be a soccer ball but now looks more like a tumor with stitching. Doesn't matter. You've got a match. Boots slap through the mud, arms flail, curses fly. It's not a game. It's a brawl, with rules only half remembered from schoolyards and shouted over machine gun fire. You slip twice, go down once, and come up coated in trench slime, and the vague shame of being tackled by a man with one working boot and no visible teeth. For 10 whole minutes, you forget. Forget the rats, the bodies, the smell of death wearing yesterday's socks. You laugh, really laugh. It comes from somewhere deep, somewhere that hasn't echoed in weeks. The ball soars over someone's head and lands square in a puddle. Someone cheers like it's a goal. Someone else calls it treason. A third man falls over laughing and nearly lands in the latrine. Curtis, wheezing, grabs the harmonica again and belts out something jazzy. No one knows the tune, but they try to hum along. A few men start dancing, stomping like drunks, arms flapping like geese fleeing a fire. It's chaos. Beautiful, ridiculous chaos. And then, whump, the sound you never get used to. Low, distant, but close enough to matter. You freeze. Another whump. The game stops. The harmonica drops. The puddle where the ball sank becomes a mirror, rippling softly. The air thickens. Time stutters. You hear the first shell before it lands. That high, rising scream that drills into your spine. Down, someone yells. You drop, face first into mud, still warm from your own laughter. The ground bucks. A deafening crack splits the sky. Dirt rains down in fat clods. Somewhere behind you, a man is screaming. Not from pain, not yet. From fear. That old familiar terror that coats your tongue and makes your stomach twist like bad stew. Another one lands. Closer. The soccer ball is gone now. Vaporized. Or maybe just forgotten. You press your face into the dirt and pray the next one finds someone else. The harmonica lies beside you, half buried, still vibrating, as if the laughter is trying to escape again. And then, stillness. Not silence, just that eerie stillness where everyone waits to see if they're still alive. You lift your head. Curtis is beside you, eyes wide, face streaked with muck. You both nod, no words. One man didn't get down in time. You see what's left of him. You try not to see his boot. It's still upright, still tied. You sit up slowly, breath ragged. Your fingers dig into the dirt like roots, like you're trying to hold the world still. Curtis picks up the harmonica, wipes it off, blows one note. It squeaks. He grins. You laugh, just once. The game's over. The ball's gone. But for a moment, before the mortars reminded you where you were, you remembered what it felt like to be human. That's the real entertainment here. A moment. Just one. Before the world catches its breath and decides you've laughed enough for today. You don't notice the medics when they're not needed. They blend in. Same mud, same uniforms, same slouched posture from too many nights sitting on crates that smell like piss and wet rags. But when the screaming starts, that's when they appear, like ghosts made of gauze and sweat. They don't carry rifles, just canvas satchels filled with hope, tape, and enough morphine to hush a small choir. You think they must be crazy running toward the gunfire while everyone else ducks, crawling through shell fire with nothing but a pair of scissors and a name you might forget by morning. Today, one of them slides beside you on his knees. His coat is already soaked in blood, not his, probably not even fresh. You're holding Curtis's leg, or what's left of it. From the knee down, it's wrong, bent where it shouldn't be, bone like snapped ivory, flesh like shredded fabric. Curtis isn't screaming anymore. He's just gasping, teeth chattering like dice in a gambler's fist. The medic looks at the leg, then at you. "Keep him awake," he says, voice steady. Not kind, not cold, just focused. Like he's tuning a violin, not saving a life. You start talking. Anything. Nonsense. A story about bread, or horses, or a girl back home, with a crooked smile and a laugh like clinking spoons. Curtis nods, barely, eyes flickering like a candle on its last drop of wax. The medic works fast. Belt becomes a tourniquet. Sock becomes a pad. His hands move, like they've done this 1,000 times. They probably have. He wraps the stump tight, smooth, practiced. No hesitation. No gagging. You realize you're shaking. You didn't notice until your hands smear blood on Curtis's face trying to wipe his brow. The medic finishes, reaches into his bag, pulls out a small glass vial. The morphine. He injects it into Curtis's arm like he's watering a plant. Curtis exhales, slow. His body sags. Then, the nod. That nod. The one you never want to see. The one that says, "You can let go now. He's not coming back from this." You hold Curtis's hand anyway. For another minute, maybe two. The medic is already moving. Another scream. Another prayer wrapped in khaki. You sit in the mud, breathing in the copper stink of someone else's pain. The morphine hasn't reached you, but something else has a numbness, heavy, all over. They say medics don't flinch. It's true. You saw it. You held a dying man while another one tied a knot to stop the world from leaking out of him. The medic never blinked. You did. Later, someone asks if Curtis said anything before he passed. You lie. Say he whispered something about his sister, about a lake they used to fish in. You don't even know if he had a sister. But it's better than the truth that he stared at the sky and mumbled nothing as his blood turned the dirt beneath you into a dark soup. You see the medic again the next day. His hands are stained pink to the wrist. His eyes look older. His laugh is the same. Dry, tired, like a joke with no punchline. He nods at you. Same nod. Different meaning. This one says, "You did what you could." You nod back. That night, you sleep beside the empty spot where Curtis used to snore. The trench doesn't notice the missing sound, but you do. You dream of scissors, of gauze, of hands that don't tremble when the world falls apart. You dream of medics, the ones who run toward the dying and leave you to count the living. The order comes down scribbled in pencil on a soggy slip of paper, passed from hand to hand like it's the word of God. You read it 3 times because surely they've got it wrong. Advance 50 meters. That's it. No why, no when, no how. Just advance. Into what? A cratered patch of mud that's been shelled into soup? A clearing known for snipers with good eyesight and worse manners? Or maybe it's just 50 meters of nothing, where you'll stand like ducks in a pond and wait to see if God's in the mood for target practice. Curtis well. The new Curtis. The kid with the peach fuzz and the cough stares at the paper like it's going to explain itself. It doesn't. You watch his lips move as he counts the meters, like that'll change what's expected. You almost want to tell him it's cute. But then you remember what happened to the last man who smiled too long. The sergeant shrugs when asked, says it's orders from high command. They want to probe the line, he mumbles, as if poking enemy defenses with your body is a normal way to spend an afternoon. You wonder who they are. Probably someone with dry socks and clean fingernails, sitting somewhere quiet with a hot cup of tea and a map they haven't walked a mile of. You ask again, "What are we advancing into?" He shrugs again. Does it matter? And the worst part? He's right. So you gear up, pull your coat tighter, check your rifle, though you know it's not going to change what's coming. You look at your boots. Mud-caked, sole-worn, the left one starting to split at the toe. They've marched you through hell, and now they'll march you 50 meters deeper. The whistle comes too soon, or maybe it's always too soon. You climb the ladder, boots slipping on the rungs, fingers numb. Your breath catches in your throat, not from fear exactly, but from knowing. Knowing this might be the dumbest thing you've ever done. And still, you do it. You crest the trench. The world is too bright, the sky too open, the mud too loud beneath your feet. You run. You don't think. You just move. One foot, then the other. The air cracks with rifle fire. The dirt kicks up around your ankles. A shell hits somewhere to your right. You don't look. If it hits you, you wouldn't be able to look. Curtis is still beside you, still running. You think you hear him shouting, but it's drowned out by the thunder, or your heartbeat, or maybe your own screaming. You reach the 50 meters. There's nothing there. No target, no trenches, no hidden machine gun nests. Just a puddle and a broken fence post and some shattered helmets half buried in clay. And now? Now you wait, crouched, breathing hard, staring at nothing, listening to the sounds of distant command tents where someone's probably drawing another line, already planning the next advance. Maybe they think you found something. Maybe they think you learned something. Maybe they don't think at all. After what feels like an hour but is probably 5 minutes, a runner appears. Waving his arms like a conductor of doom, he shouts, "Fall back." That's it. You stare at him. Then at the mud you just sprinted through. Then at Curtis, who looks like he might cry or laugh or throw up. You fall back. Same ground, same bullets, same stomach-churning lurch that tells you the universe doesn't give a damn how many lines get drawn on how many maps. When you finally collapse into the trench again, knees giving out, hands trembling, someone pats your back like you've won a prize. You don't feel like a winner. You feel like paint. Like someone dipped you in red and used you to color a line on paper. 50 meters. That's what your life's worth now. A little smudge on a map. And tomorrow, they might ask for 60. It's Sunday. You know this because the chaplain says so. He says it with a voice that sounds like it used to carry weight, used to fill halls. Now it barely rises above the wind. The wind that snakes through the trench and carries the scent of unwashed bodies, wet canvas, and the things no one buries fast enough. He's standing at the corner near the supply crate that doubles as an altar. It still smells like tinned beef. There's a cross made from 2 sticks, lashed together with bootlace, jammed into the mud like a stake in the heart of something ancient and rotting. You're all gathered, some sitting, some crouching, a few still standing with rifles slung loose across their backs. One is asleep with his chin on his chest, gently snoring. No one wakes him. Let the man dream. The chaplain opens his book. The cover is torn, pages warped from damp and fingers in fear. He reads aloud, voice cracking at the edges. Psalm something. Doesn't matter. You're not here for the words. You're here because it's Sunday. Because once, long ago, maybe just last year Sunday, meant church bells, fresh bread, the sound of your mother humming through a screen door, clean shirts and big dinners, and prayers that didn't taste like desperation. Now Sunday is just slightly less screaming, less smoke, less blood. Maybe. The chaplain talks about peace, redemption, mercy. He says God walks with you in the valley of the shadow of death. You look around at the trench, the rats, the puddles, the dent in the wall, where a man's skull cracked last week. If this is a valley, it doesn't have shadows, just damp. You shift on your crate. Mud squelches under your boot. Something soft down there. You don't check what it is. A man starts to cry. Quiet, at first. Then louder. He's not young. He's seen more than you. Probably has a wife. Maybe kids. Maybe just a photo folded in 4 and tucked into his breast pocket. You don't ask. The chaplain keeps reading. Another man laughs. Just once. Sharp. Wrong. Then he covers his mouth like he broke something. You look up. There's sky. Blue, almost. If you squint past the barbed wire and smoke stains, it looks like it did back home. But the illusion doesn't last. A shell goes off far away. A low thump that trembles in your ribs. No one flinches. It's Sunday. You think about God. What he thinks of this place. If he walks here, does he wear boots? Does he flinch when the mortars hit? Or does he look away like the rest of the world has? A rat scurries past your foot, bold, fat. It pauses, stares at you with beady eyes like it's sizing you up for next week. You think about asking it for a confession, or maybe a hymn. It might listen better than some of the men here. The chaplain closes the book. He bows his head. You all do, too. Even the sleeping man shifts a little, like his body remembers something his mind forgot. No one speaks when the prayer ends. You sit a little longer, just breathing, trying not to remember why your boots squelch when you shift, trying not to notice the stain on your sleeve that never quite washed out. The chaplain moves on. He'll do this again in the next trench, maybe the one after. Maybe someone will thank him. Maybe someone will ask why God doesn't stop any of this. You don't, because Sunday will end, like all the others. The mortars will start again. The rain will come. Someone will scream. Someone will vanish. And tomorrow, it won't be Sunday anymore. Just another day in hell. It happens more than you expect. At first, it's loud. Always. Screaming, shouting, shells. The earth opens its mouth and tries to eat you alive. But the ones who vanish, that's different. That's quieter. Like the war forgets to scream that day. You're sitting with McAllister. He's got a nasty cough and a face like a kicked boot, but he tells the best stories. Ones with pubs and horses and a girl named Lily who probably never existed. He's halfway through a joke about a priest, a duck, and a bicycle when the sky flashes. Just once. You don't even duck. It's far off, you think. Just a warning. You blink. Cough. Look back to your left. McAllister is gone. No blood. No noise. Just gone. You stand. Look around. Shout his name. Nothing. You find part of his coat, still warm, snagged on a jutting bit of trench wall like it's waving goodbye. No sign of the rest. No scream. No goodbye. Not even a sound. You wait for hours thinking maybe he wandered off. Got stunned. Maybe he's up in the medic tent with a head wound and a confused smile, telling the nurse about Lily and her bicycle. But he's not. Next day, someone takes his spot in the trench, puts their kit down like the dirt doesn't remember the last man who stood there. You want to say something, want to tell them they're in the ghost of McAllister. But you don't. You don't want that ghost to follow you. Another time, it's Simpson, tall bloke, big hands. He used to carve little animals from bullet casings and hand them out like charms. One day, a trench wall gives out, just crumbles. Soggy mud and too much rain. It swallows him. They dig for hours, with shovels, with hands, with desperation. Nothing. You stare at the spot, wonder if he's alive under there, if he's still breathing, if he's screaming and the mud is just too thick to let the sound out. You don't sleep that night. You keep thinking about how fast the mud moved, how quiet it was, how easy. A few days later, someone slips, falls in the same spot. You watch them flinch, like the earth might remember. You start to hate the silence more than the noise. At least when it's noisy, when the shells come and the rifles crack and men scream, at least then you know. You see it. You count the cost in blood and boots. But when they vanish, there's no number for that. Just an absence. Like a missing tooth your tongue keeps finding. You stop saying their names after a while, not out loud, not unless you're drunk. Even then, it feels like calling out to something with teeth. A kid named Brenner tried to keep a list once. Names, dates, details. He was going to remember them all, he said. Give them something permanent. A record. The notebook got soaked. Pages stuck together. Ink ran like tears. He threw it in the fire, sat staring at the flames like they'd burn it into his memory instead. Now, he doesn't talk much. You learn to track time by who's missing. Oh, that was 2 Thompsons ago. That happened before Bailey disappeared. Remember when Hartley was here? Before he... You know. No one finishes the sentence. You just let it hang. Like a photograph turned to smoke. The trench forgets quickly. The war does too. But you remember. Not their faces, not exactly. Those blur, mixed together, but their gaps. The space they left behind. A boot without a foot. A cup without a hand. Laughter that stopped mid-breath. That's what stays. That's what haunts. You don't say their names. You just look at the place they stood and try not to step there. You used to think you knew what a coward looked like. Back home, they were the boys who ducked fights, the ones who flinched when the schoolmaster raised his voice, the ones with soft hands and jumpy eyes. You thought bravery was loud, square-jawed, drenched in courage and cigarette smoke. You thought cowards ran and heroes stood tall. And then you came here. And here, The stories rot. Your first week in the trench, you saw a captain sob into his hands after sending 6 boys into a machine gun nest. Real tears. Shoulder-shaking grief. He didn't look at anyone for days after. Just stared at his boots like they might step backward in time and undo it. You'd heard he was a decorated man, medals for gallantry. And yet there he was, crying in a ditch like a schoolboy. Then there was Reggie, thin, pale, stammered when nervous. First time under shell fire, he froze, couldn't move, couldn't blink, just stood, with his mouth open, eyes wide, like the fear had turned him to salt. You thought, coward, until the gas attack. The rest of you fumbled for masks, tripping over each other, coughing, gagging. But Reggie ran straight into it, grabbed Smithy, who'd passed out, and dragged him back through the fog, both of them retching, blind. When they surfaced, Reggie collapsed, blood at his nose, burns down his neck. Smithy lived. Reggie didn't. Coward, huh? You learn that war doesn't care about your labels, doesn't care who your father was or how many fists you threw behind a barn. Here, even the bravest beg, even the toughest cry. You watched one lad crawl through no man's land to pull his brother's body back by the collar, sobbing the whole way, bullets snapping around him like gnats. His hands were shredded, his knees were red, but he got him back. Wrapped the corpse in a coat like it could still feel warmth. You asked why. He said, because that's what you do for your blood. You nodded, but deep down you didn't know if you'd do the same. Then there's the cannon. Not a person, a thing. A machine that sits behind the lines, belching thunder, carving craters into the world. It doesn't aim at faces, just coordinates. Press a button, pull a lever, erase a village, or a tree, or 12 men eating breakfast. You hear it speak. It's how you know a new day has started. The cannon doesn't care about fear. It doesn't flinch or hesitate. It doesn't dream of peace or pray for silence. Maybe that's what courage is here. Cold, mechanical. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe courage is the boy who shakes as he climbs the ladder. Anyway, the medic who throws up between patients and keeps wrapping wounds. The man who writes, "All's well," to his wife, while wiping blood off his fingers. You've seen cowards become lions. You've seen heroes choke on dirt and cry for their mothers. You've seen officers break down and private nobodies hold the line. And you've stopped trying to sort them out. Because here, stories don't follow rules. They drip. They collapse. They blur. Courage today is madness tomorrow. And cowardice? Sometimes it's just survival. You've learned not to judge, not by who stands still and who runs, but by who comes back and who doesn't. It starts as a murmur, a ripple through the trench, soft as fog and just as impossible to grab. Someone says it came from the rear. Someone else says the chaplain overheard it. A third swears it was in the letter he just got from home, that the war might be ending. Soon. You scoff. Of course you do. Everyone does. Except for the kid with the too big helmet, eyes lit like it's Christmas morning. He starts counting the days. You don't have the heart to tell him it doesn't work like that. But still, you hear it. The quiet, like the front lines are holding their breath. Like even the mortars are waiting. The mud is still the same. The stink hasn't improved. But something in the air shifts. Less gunfire. Fewer orders bark down the line. You feel it in your spine, the kind of silence that might mean something. You catch yourself daydreaming. A real bath. Bread that isn't gray. A bed that doesn't twitch with lice. Maybe a woman's voice that isn't followed by screaming. You try not to picture too much. Hope is dangerous out here. But it's there. The whisper. The maybe. Then it happens. You're sharing a cigarette with Jennings. You don't like him much, but you share anyway. Because even trenchmates you don't like are still your trenchmates. He's telling a story about his dad, something about a butcher shop and a haunted ham when it happens. A crack. Sharp. Precise. Jennings drops, his face still halfway into the punchline. You don't scream. You don't move. You just sit there, staring at the blood creeping from his temple, slow and ugly. No shout of warning. No sirens. Just the quiet again. Thicker now. Meaner. The sniper waits. You know he does. Just to see who twitches. You slide down the trench wall, heartbeat in your throat. You don't check Jennings again. You don't need to. And just like that, the whisper dies. You hear someone cursing down the line. Another throws up. A third mutters something about how they knew it was too quiet. You want to scream at the sky, want to rip the rumor from the air like a loose tooth and hurl it into no man's land. Because hope hurts more than hunger, more than trench foot, more than the gas that still lives in the corners of your lungs. Hope gives your brain the idea that maybe, just maybe, you'll make it out, that you'll go home, that you'll laugh again without flinching at thunder. But not today. Today, the war reminds you that rumors don't stop bullets. Later, someone drags what's left of Jennings to the edge, wraps him in a blanket. It's the best anyone can do. The chaplain says something under his breath. You don't catch it. You're too busy watching the sky, waiting for it to give you a sign. Nothing comes. Just more cloud, more cold, more waiting. That night, the whisper limps on. A little quieter now, less certain. Someone says the sniper must have been acting alone, that it wasn't official, that maybe, just maybe, the ceasefire is still coming. You nod, not because you believe them, but because it's the only thing left to do. You close your eyes, try to sleep, try not to picture Jennings' face, try not to hear the crack of a rifle every time the wind whistles past. The ceasefire will come. Maybe. But tonight, you stay low, and you don't count days anymore. The train hisses like it's angry to be back. You step off with boots that still smell like rot, a coat that hangs wrong on your thinner frame, and eyes that twitch every time someone drops a suitcase. The platform is crowded with banners and handkerchiefs and faces that forgot what war looks like. Your mother is there. You recognize her by the way her hands twist in front of her dress. She's smaller than you remember, or maybe you're just taller in the wrong places now. You hug. It's stiff, polite. She smells like flour and old soap. You try to inhale it, try to drown out the trench. You can't. She cries. You don't. The house is the same. The door creaks the same way. The floor still groans under the third step. Your bed still has the dip on the left side. It should be comforting, but it's not. It feels like slipping into someone else's skin. At dinner, your father clears his throat and says he's proud of you. You nod. Your sister asks if you saw anything scary. You laugh. It sounds wrong in the room, too sharp, like a cracked plate. You lie. You say it wasn't so bad. You say the food was fine. You say most of the lads made it home. You don't say you held a man's jaw in your lap while he died, calling for a dog that had been dead for 2 years. You don't say you still feel the mud between your toes when you close your eyes. You don't say you flinch when the kettle whistles. You don't say that part of you never got off the transport truck. The village looks different now, not physically. The buildings are still chipped at the corners. The same boys still loiter near the bakery. The same smell of coal and milk in the morning. But it all feels staged, like a play someone set up just for your return. Everyone's acting normal. You go to the pub. It's quieter than you remember. The barkeep tries to give you a beer on the house. You accept it. It tastes too cold. Some men ask questions. Others avoid your eyes. One says, "Must feel good to be back." You nod again. You're getting good at that. But back isn't the same thing as home. Because your body made it, but not all of you did. You still hear things. At night. In the pipes. in the walls. You still sleep light and wake hard. Still reach for a rifle that isn't there. Still sit with your back to the wall without realizing. Still eat fast, like someone's going to take the food away. You try to help in the garden. The soil is too clean. You dig and wait for a boot, a bone, something awful, but it's just carrots. You visit a friend's grave, the one who didn't make it. His mother hugs you. You don't hug back. You just stand there, feeling like a ghost at the wrong funeral. The days stretch. People stop asking, stop watching. The welcome fades. The flags get folded. And you're just another man on the street now. Except you're not. You're stitched together from silence and gunpowder and memories that don't come when called, but show up screaming in your dreams. You sit by the fire one evening. Your mother knits. Your father smokes. The radio hums. And you realize something terrifying. You survived, but the war never left. It just moved in, and now it sleeps in your bed, eats at your table, walks in your skin, and no one else seems to notice. They called it the war to end all wars, said it with their chests puffed out and their mustaches twitching like the phrase itself was made of honor. A clean war, a fast war, the kind you could frame in a painting, maybe, hang it in Parliament next to a dusty globe and a quote about destiny. They lied. They lied with medals and flags and the posters that made the uniform look like a costume instead of a shroud. They lied with their speeches, with their maps, with their gentle reassurances that this one would be over by Christmas. It's been 4 Christmases, and the war didn't end anything. It just made more of itself. You sit by the window now. The same view you had before. Same muddy street. Same crooked fence, same dog barking at shadows. But your eyes don't see it the way they used to. They scan, they assess. They wait for movement, for trouble, for smoke curling up where it shouldn't. You drink tea, slowly. You don't like the taste anymore. You don't like the silence either. It used to mean peace. Now it means you're waiting for the next explosion. Your brother visits. He talks about work, about the bakery expanding, about his son's tooth falling out. You nod, smile at the right times, but all you hear is the sound a man makes when he steps on something that shouldn't be there. The soft crunch, the pause, the scream that doesn't come fast enough. They gave you a medal. It sits in a drawer. You took it out once, held it in your hand. It felt cold, like the medal remembered more than it should. You put it back. You haven't touched it since. There's a parade coming next month. They want the veterans to march. Dress uniforms, cheers, music. You haven't decided if you'll go. You don't know if you want to see the faces of boys who didn't come back, or the faces of men who did, but left their souls somewhere near Ypres. You read the paper sometimes. There's talk of another war. Not today, but maybe, somewhere. The shape of it on the horizon like a bruise just starting to show. You wonder what they'll call the next one. You wonder if they'll lie about that one too. Your hands still shake sometimes. Not always. Just when you hear thunder, or the clatter of pots, or a car backfiring. Your mother says it'll pass, that your body just needs time to adjust. But it's not your body, it's your memory. It's your soul, pressed like a flower between the pages of a book no one reads anymore. You go for walks at night now. Fewer people. Fewer questions. You like the way the streetlights look in the fog. Like ghosts trying to remember what it felt like to be warm. You pass windows and see families laughing. Men with both legs. Women who sleep easy. You don't envy them. You don't hate them. You just feel separate. Like the war left a mark no soap can scrub off. Like you're the punchline to a joke that stopped being funny halfway through. And yet, here you are, breathing, blinking, waiting for the silence to leave, or for something loud enough to feel real again, waiting for someone to say the right thing, or the wrong thing, or anything. They said it would end all wars, but it didn't. It ended boys. It ended songs. It ended whole towns worth of laughter. And now you sit by the wall, fingers tapping a rhythm only you understand. Because if this was the end, God help us when the next beginning comes. They said trench soldiers had it easy. They said it with dry socks and clean fingernails, with mouths that had never tasted chalk dust from a collapsing wall or chewed a biscuit so hard it chipped a tooth. They said it from safe places, after the war, with a pint in hand and no twitch in their eye when someone dropped a fork. Easy. Like kneeling in mud so cold your knees stopped belonging to you was some kind of luxury. Like waiting hours for a letter that never came was a gentle pastime. Like holding your best friend's hand while he forgot how to breathe was a soft kind of farewell. They didn't see the mud. Not real mud. Not the kind that moves like it knows your name, that breathes under your boots, that pulls until you aren't walking anymore. You're pleading. There's a kind of silence in the mud, too. A gurgling hush, like it's whispering. Just lie down. It's warmer here. They didn't see the rats. Not the cute city rats that scatter in the light. These ones don't run. They stare. They nest. They breed in your kit bag and steal warmth from your armpits. They nibble the knuckles of men, too wounded to swat them away. They know the dead by name and the living by scent. And they always come back. They didn't smell the trench. A thick perfume of feet and feces and fear, mixed with powder and mildew and a hint of rot that never quite leaves your nostrils. The kind of smell that clings to your coat, to your dreams, to the space behind your eyes. They didn't hear the silence between shells. That taut, awful stillness where nothing moves, but everything could. That second before the whistle blows, before the sky falls again, before you find out if your name is on today's list. Easy? They didn't watch men forget how to speak. Not from injury, but from horror. Didn't see boys learn to count the dead by their boots when there wasn't enough face left to tell. They didn't learn to eat fast and cry slow, to write cheerful letters with a pencil stolen from a corpse, to stare at a sunset and wonder if it's the last thing you'll ever see that isn't gray or red. Compared to what? The gas attacks? The firestorms? The mines underfoot that wait like patient little demons? Was it easier than freezing to death in the Alps? Than bleeding out in a no-name field with no one around but the birds and your own regret? Sure, maybe, but only if you count surviving as ease. Only if the bar is set so low it's buried under the mud you never really left. You walked out of that trench. Whole, sort of. Breathing, at least. But you carried the trench with you. In your marrow. In the way you flinch at fireworks. In the way you count exits in every room. The trench never ends. Not when the paperwork clears. Not when the medal is pinned. Not when they say, "Well done, lad," and shake your hand like it didn't hold a bayonet last week. So no, it wasn't easy. It was long. It was quiet in the worst places and loud in the wrong ones. It was waiting to die and learning, slowly, how to live with that waiting. And if that was the easy job, God help the rest. You made it. That's what they say. Anyway, you're here, breathing, walking, eating porridge you don't taste, and answering questions you don't hear. Your hands still move, your eyes still blink, but somewhere between the whistle and the wire, something stayed behind. The train home was quiet, not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that sits too close to you, that breathes down your neck. Soldiers filled the seats, but no one spoke. A cough here, a muttered curse, but mostly just silence, and a few thousand-yard stares aimed at nothing in particular. You stepped off onto the platform and people cheered. They threw flowers like that made up for the shrapnel. One woman even kissed your cheek. You smiled. or tried to. It cracked like old paint. At home, your mother wept over you like you were risen from the dead. Your father gripped your shoulder with a pride so heavy it almost knocked you over. The dog barked, ecstatic, as if your scent alone confirmed some ancient truth. But the truth is, you're not really back. You're a shadow stitched into a uniform, a memory pretending to be a man. You sleep in a real bed now, clean sheets, a window, a door, no rats, no lice, no screaming. And yet, you don't sleep. Not well, not without the dreams. The ones with gas creeping low like a curse. The ones with boots sinking into a mouth of mud. The ones where you can't find your rifle, or your legs, or your voice. You wake up drenched. You don't scream. You've trained yourself out of it. But the silence afterward is worse. Your mother asks if you want more food. You nod. Your sister says you've gone quiet. You nod again. It's easier than explaining the words you buried back in Flanders. You see the others sometimes, the ones who made it. You nod at them across the street. They nod back. No one waves. No one calls out. Because you all know, not all of you came home. Some left a leg in the mud. Some left their minds behind a sandbag wall. And some just faded. You talk to yourself more now, not out loud, but inside. You ask the version of you that stood in line at the draft office what he would have done if he knew. You ask the version of you who crawled through barbed wire whether any of it mattered. You ask the version of you that never came back if he's still out there, under some unmarked soil, watching. Some days are better. You go for walks. You talk to a girl in the market who smells like apples and doesn't flinch when you look away mid-sentence. You think, maybe. But then a car backfires. And suddenly you're not in the market anymore. You're in the trench. You're in the noise. You're in the blood. It passes. It always passes. But it takes something with it when it goes. They say the war is over. They write poems about it, paintings, speeches full of polished grief. They build statues and hold services and sell poppies by the fistful. You go. You stand there in your best coat. You close your eyes during the silence. But it's not your silence. Yours is louder. Yours has names in it. Faces. Yours smells like gas. You made it. You did. But every time someone says it, a part of you winces. Because you know the truth. You made it back. But not all of you did. And the parts still out there? They don't write. They don't visit. They just wait. In the fog, in the dreams, in the breath you hold every time someone says, "Thank you for your service." You nod, smile, and you go on. Because that's all that's left.